Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Puzzled Parents. Very excited for our episode today. We have an amazing guest. Here is Miss Lisa. Miss Lisa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Lisa Jacovsky. I am a professor of psychology in the field of applied behavior analysis since 2014, and I'm an award-winning children's book author. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. So tell us a little bit about how special needs have has touched your life. Like what brought you to this show?
I really love working in special needs. I started working with adults in residential group homes, and I think that's really where everything changed. And that's why I wanted to do your show. My experience is so different than most people's experience because I've been very, very lucky to be able to work with adults, then kids, doing in-home ABA, then early intervention. When I worked with adults, one of the things the last company I worked for, they said to me when they hired me was, "We want you to plan things, take them out, go do things."
Right.
And we did that. I did that for about a year before I left, and I took them everywhere. We went to Dorney Park and rode roller coasters and went down the water slides, and we went to the Crayola factory and did a non-alcoholic paint and sip. Like, we had so much fun, and that's what really inspired my first children's book series, the Let's Talk series, and that's really why I wanted to come on here, because I wanna bring up the fact that being different is beautiful. It's not limiting in any way. You're
Right.
only limited by the people around you. I had 0 issues when I would take the adults out with me. I even coached Special Olympics bowling team with them and had 0 issues. And I did in-home ABA, take 'em to the park. We go out and hang out, and we'd work on socialization. We would work on, saying hi, holding hands, things like that. So it's been a really amazing ride. I've been very, very lucky. And then to have my books kind of go the way they have, now I've incorporated special needs cats. It's bringing awareness to something that so many people come up to me and say they had no idea about. So I've been really blessed and really lucky to be able to have this career, to gain this experience, and then turn it into something that I've dreamed of doing since I was a kid.
Well, that's what this show and this platform here is all about. It's all
Mm.
about everyone being able to tell their story. And there are so many different perspectives and angles that we can talk about. That's why I didn't want to limit it to just, parents of kids with autism, because yes, that's an area that really needs to be made more aware in the general society. Because even though there's more awareness than there used to be, there's still a lot of stereotypical
Mm.
kind of labels, if you will, out there. And I want to hear from professionals as well, like yourself. I'm in my day job is healthcare. I've been in it for 30 years, so I know a lot of other therapists and different things that have worked in school systems, and their stories are important too because it's a different perspective
Mhm.
than, even as parents, my perspective is going to be different than somebody else's. And, I just think it's important to tell it all.
I agree completely, and I love that you brought up the school system because I worked in a school for a year as well, and then just I worked in 2, and they were very different. And, you bring up the fact of people being open, having different perspectives, and that's really what I worked in there. And that's why I wanted to write my books as well and come on here because, the different perspectives are what affect our kids. And if we can help our adults right now understand more and encourage them to encourage their kids to be more open, we can have these kids grow up to be adults that are more accepting, more aware and understanding, and have less bullying going on that we have right now. And I think that's part of what drew me into teaching too, because I'm working with, and I do have adult learners, but I'm also working with the 18, 20-year-old crowd that are just beginning. They're just starting their careers. And I was talking about this earlier too, but I've had so many kind of like monkey wrenches come up in my career where I change things, how to figure it out. And I talk about that with my students. And I think it really is something that helps them kind of guide them, because a lot of them come in thinking, I'm going to have this kind of career, but then they change their minds. Or some are on their second or third try at school trying to figure things out. And I've got 2 careers right now that are starting to finally meld together, but
Right.
it's basically going towards in school psychology away from ABA into a 3rd career. And, we really need to let people know that's okay too, that it's something you don't have to be scared of. And it's the same thing with special needs. You don't have to be scared of that. Just because your kid can't talk verbally doesn't mean they can't talk, period. And I saw a
Exactly.
lot of the difficulties that parents go through in schools when I worked in that school district for a year. So I think too, working in the school psych, it's going to give me that extra perspective to kind of bring to that and hopefully make a change as well.
We definitely need to change it. I don't think anybody would disagree that to have some changes and updates in our school system wouldn't be a bad thing.
100%. And I think one of the biggest things we have to do is put the resources out there. A lot of parents and families blame vaccines, and what's really going on is we're not putting out there the signs when they're younger than when they need to get vaccines. If we make it okay to talk about this, talk about the positive stuff with being special needs, and talk about those signs, we can create this positive awareness where we're not looking for something to blame. We're just like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I can do for it. I have so many families and parents just struggling that I've worked with, friends that I work with now that are struggling because it's so hard to get the resources they need. And that's not the way it should be, and that's
Yeah,
why I was so excited for this too, because we need to get more of this information out there.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's so hard, especially, I mean, there's challenges at all levels, and there's that saying, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. So each
Yes.
person has their individual challenges, but there's challenges that I didn't have to deal with, but the parents with whose children that don't speak do. On the other end of that spectrum, though, it's hard if your child can be articulate, and of
Mhm.
course you teach them appropriate social skills, so they're going to walk up to you, shake your hand, and say, "How you doing? So and so. What's your name?" But not because they know that not because they figured it out. It's because you taught them that, they memorized it, they know it's socially acceptable, and so that's what they do. And because they're able to do that and kind of take it till you make it kind of thing, it's hard to get them services because they can kind of fool you.
Masking, exactly.
Exactly. That's the perfect word for that. And that's more the end of the spectrum that I dealt with a lot, was teaching people to see, hey, these are the issues. I remember when she was in elementary school and I was fighting for her IEP because, long story short, they kind of bullied me into signing it away.
Oh my gosh.
And it's hard to get it back. But when you tried to get it back, they were going, "Oh, she doesn't, need it." I remember when she walked in here at 4 years old and stuck her little hand out and introduced herself to me. That's all well and good, but there again, she did that because she knows that's the expected social needs. They memorize. You have to teach them everything, everything.
Exactly.
And along those lines, here's kind of it. Well, it's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. Uh, Teaching my daughter to drive. Um, I was getting over a broken ankle, so I wasn't supposed to be doing a lot of driving, and she had her permit. So I said, okay, we're gonna follow my husband now, because I was a single mom till she was in her 20s. So we're gonna follow him down to the car repair place because we have to bring him back home.
Yeah.
She said, all right. She gets in the car and we start going, no problem. Well, we get to this T intersection with a 4-lane highway, and there's a stop sign. And my husband was a little further ahead, so he stopped and he went on through and started going on the far lanes, you know? She barrels right through the stop sign. We were in a little Yaris, and
You
it
didn't
starts
know.
screeching sideways. And my very first thought was, yeah, I forgot to explain to her what following somebody means.
Yeah, it's those little things.
The car screeches to a halt, and I was just like, you know, I forgot to mention that following someone means you drive your car like you normally would and go the same direction as but when they're functioning well and doing pretty well, sometimes we forget that, hey, there's these underlying issues that still need attention and support. And that's kind of where we were at then, because she was functioning so well at that time and she was stable at that time. And it's interesting to me. My very first thought was, well, that's on me.
And that's the good thing is that you understood it. You weren't in denial of it, and that's where a lot of the difficulties come in too, because if it's not blatant in your face, people don't want to face it. You know,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
we've been almost conditioned to think it has to be blatant in your face. And that's why females go so under diagnosed because they can mask it
that's
so well, just like your daughter.
100%. She was not officially diagnosed until she was 10 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the only reason she became diagnosed was because of all the research I had done. And back then, 'cause she's turning 27 next month. So back then, 17, 18 years ago, we didn't have as much awareness as we have now, which is great, but we need to go even more. But so I would read and I would get any articles or books I could get my hands on, and they would all say it's different in girls,
Exactly.
but they would never say how. I'm going,
I've
okay,
heard that too.
yes, I get that it's different, but tell me what it looks like.
And that's the problem. That's why we need more things like this. We need more books that show it. We need talking more about it. We need it to be a safe space to talk about it. Have you seen about how a lot of adults are getting diagnosed?
I've heard about that. I have heard about that.
I've seen
I-
it a lot on social media, and I've had adults come up to me at festivals and tell me, and they've actually will say it's made my whole life made sense.
Exactly. And just been talking with other parents since I've been doing the show, that that's a very common thread where these kids grow up and think, something's wrong with me. And they feel bad because they think, well, it's my behavior, something's wrong, something's broken.
Yeah.
And it's not, it just functions differently. You
Exactly, and when they're a kid, they think they're being naughty, they think they're being bad, and that's really not what it is.
Yeah,
The last festival I did, I had a mom come up to me and her daughter, she was so sweet. She's like, "We just got her diagnosed," and it was all sensory issues. She's like, "Once we got her the weighted backpack, the tantrums and the meltdown stopped." And I was like,
yes.
"That's exactly what we need to talk more about."
Oh,
Exactly, that's what it was like for this mom, and she was so sweet. The whole family came over, the older sibling, the younger sibling, and the daughter with autism was so sweet. She was so excited about the books, and she had her weighted backpack on, and you just would never know anything was going on,
yeah.
and I said to the family, I was like, "Thank you for being open to getting her diagnosed."
Oh, yeah.
She was like it just, like, was life-changing to find out the sensory issues. Now we know we need to do headphones, we need to do the weighted backpack, we know she has
Yeah.
sensory stuff, and that I think is one of the biggest things that we don't talk about either is the sensory difficulties that individuals
Yeah.
that are neurodivergent have, and those are those stories that we need to talk about more so that kids don't think they're being bad or being naughty and go into a depression and start having anxiety, and that parents don't push them into that point without meaning to.
And that's it right there. That is the bomb. Pushing them into it
Exactly.
without meaning to. Uh, for example, when my daughter was little, real little, 2, 3, 4 years old, she had real thick hair like I do. So I'm getting ready to go to work because I was a single mom. and I was trying to I would braid the sides of her hair so she goes back out of her face. And while I'm trying to do it, her head kept turning. And I
Uh-huh.
thought, oh, she's just, she's not sitting still or whatever, because I didn't know any better at the time, And I said, stop turning your head, stop turning your head. So fast forward a couple years, she got diagnosed with her petit mal seizures. And I said to the neurologist, I said, it's on the right side of her head, isn't it? He said, well, yeah,
Oh,
how'd you know that? I said, because, and I told him about the hair. I said, her head would always drift to the left.
oh my
And
god.
as a therapist, I kind of knew how the brain works, like because of stroke patients and
Yeah.
stuff I dealt with, but I never really, and then of course I felt really bad because I was frustrated with her, like, stop, look straight ahead, stop turning your head. And it wasn't her fault.
Right.
But now that you understand it
Mhm.
and you know what it is, and it's called by its name, then you can, modify it, address it.
Exactly.
Compensatory strategies. It's all about those compensatory strategies. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. And I think, like you say, just being aware of those things make a huge, huge difference.
Exactly. And we shouldn't, as a society, make parents feel bad. They feel guilty. They feel bad. They feel like they did something wrong. And that's not how the parents should feel. They should just be like you just did, like the light bulb going off and being like, okay, now let's change things. I didn't do anything wrong as a parent. I didn't do anything, because I did what I thought I was right. And now I know differently. Let's change it. That's all it is.
Yeah. And that's the key, not punishing ourselves.
Exactly. No
You know,
blame.
I did the best I could at the time with the information I had, and that's all I could do.
Exactly, and I get so many parents that feel so bad and blame themselves, and I'm like, "You did nothing wrong." You're not the one who's in the wrong, this world is. We need to
Yes.
be more accepting, and we need to put out more positive resources, and just resources in general, because it's so hard for families to get what they need for their child, to get the
Yes.
support and help they need, and autism is just a different way to learn. So why
Yes.
is this world so against it? That's what I don't understand.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. You are so, like, right on, nail on the head. Nail on the head. Like, I couldn't agree more with you if I tried.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to come on and talk about this, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now is we need to do more of this. It just pushes me to get this out there more, get my books out there more, and keep doing what I'm doing, because
Oh
what's
yeah.
going on in the world right now is just incredibly, incredibly sad. And I see what one of my friends is going through with her child, and it's like she shouldn't have to go through this.
Yeah. I just won an appeal against Medicaid because they tried to
Mhm.
take my daughter's services away because she has a special
Good.
waiver. And last July, they
Uh-huh.
said, well, she doesn't qualify anymore. She's too high level. She's functioning too well. And so they tried to take it away. And I
Crazy.
was like, They denied the appeal initially. So I took it to the hearing.
Good.
And what the hearing officer didn't know was that I used to work for DMAS, which is a Medicaid here in Virginia. And they trained me on how to do the assessments that they use because I was a
Mhm.
case manager for a while. So I knew exactly where to find it. I knew exactly what I literally went line by line through the tests, and I explained, the ones that she did. She's not going to meet all every little thing, you know. But I explained she meets this because of this, da, 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 da. Next point, she meets this because da, da, da. And if she didn't meet it, I skipped over it and moved on. And you know, the mediator asked me some questions, and I answered them honestly. And
That's amazing. Congrats. That's
thank
inspiring
you.
to other families. And it's also kind of like a catch-22. As excited and happy I am that you won, it's also like you shouldn't have had to go through that.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I think I shared with you that my daughter went through a time period where she was being abused and exploited by
Yeah.
some friends that she let move in with her. And her case manager is supposed to be going out there every month
Yes.
to check on her. Well, what she was doing was texting her, "Hey, is everything okay?" And what's she gonna say? Like,
Everything's fine, she's gonna mask it. Yeah, she's not. Yeah.
yes, you
And the
can't.
case managers are overworked, underpaid,
Yes,
so they're cutting
definitely.
corners. I've been there, I've worked with them.
Yeah, I mean, people with autism have that kind of magical thinking where
We do.
everything's great. And I'm not knocking that, but it's you have to understand that in order to be able to peel back the layers and get to what's really going on here, because they should have seen that
Exactly, and
and put a
especially as
stop
an
to it.
individual, like the autism aside, the case manager should have known her as an individual too. And that's
Yeah,
part of the thing is everyone just sees the autism. They're not realizing that they're individual people. And you have to put the autism aside and see them for that instead, as a way to really get to know them as a human being.
yeah.
That's exactly what that case manager did. She's just like, whatever, she's autistic, she'll tell me, but she didn't peel things aside, put the autism aside, and really see your daughter for who she is.
That you are so right. That's a difficult area for me because I know that I struggled with that because I was so focused on I need to make her functional, functional, functional. She needs to be able to take care of
I
herself. She has to
know.
be able to work. She has to get out. That
That's
I
the
was
way
so
our world
focused
is.
on that I feel like as a parent, I failed her in her older teenage years where putting that aside and just seeing her as the person and not as the autism.
But that's not your fault
Well,
because,
it might not be,
yeah,
but
this world, that's what they condition us that we should be doing.
yeah, I think I froze up here to my picture freeze.
Yeah.
Ah,
There we
there
go.
I am.
It
Yeah, this
happens.
is real. This is real time here. So we don't edit
Exactly.
things out. This is real life here. But I mean, I don't. For a while, I beat myself up, but you have to learn to give yourself grace. You don't know what you don't know,
Exactly.
and you know, as a single mom, it was tough. And not having a lot of people, even in your own family, that understand. Some of my family, because I pulled my daughter out and homeschooled her for 7 years.
Yeah.
And some of my family members would say, just put her back in public school. She'll be fine. That's all she needs.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was like, first of all, you live in a different state. Second of all, you come walk a mile in my shoes and we'll talk.
Exactly, because
I
they
mean,
just didn't understand. They thought they
yeah,
were being helpful.
and you can't. I mean, I get that, so I don't hold that against them at all. I love them.
Exactly. You can't fault them for it because it's not their fault either.
Right, right, and we all make mistakes.
Mhm.
Even as much as we think we learn and know and grow, there's always an area or something different or more. You know,
Exactly. I believe we're always learning, we're always growing and evolving. And I think that's part of the issue with, being understanding too, is that adults think that, oh, we're adults, we know everything, then that's it. And that's not true whatsoever. If we could be open to that evolution, to that always learning and growing, it would help so much to understand things that aren't fully concrete, that are kind of in a gray area, like autism is.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And you know, as parents, we want to be perfect for our kids. We want to do the absolute 100% best we can, but
Exactly.
we need to give ourselves grace and just say, you know what?
100%, absolutely, because it 150% is not your fault. It's the world's fault. Because like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and it isn't fair. I've had many parents say to me, "What did I miss?" How
Right.
did this happen? And I'm like, but it's not your fault. Give yourself a break. You're doing everything you can that you are able to, you
Right.
know?
Right. And it's like you were saying earlier, how when that family got the diagnosis, then suddenly everything made sense. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, how girls are so underdiagnosed. Walking on their tiptoes a lot as a small child,
Mhm.
I didn't know that was an indication. And of course, as a little girl who goes around walking on her tippy toes, what do people say? Oh, she wants to be a ballerina.
Exactly. They think it's cute, and it's super, super common to have kids walk on their tippy toes now. So,
Yeah,
even though it's an indicator, it scares families because they're like, oh my God, that could mean autism. And it's like, even if they're not talking, they could just be delayed and they're like freaking out because they're not talking. They're walking on tippy toes. I'm like, you just do what you need to do, give them heavier shoes, see if that helps. And if it doesn't, then let's talk about it. But people
yeah.
get so freaked out by those little things.
And in a way, that's a good thing
Yeah.
because it's a product of more awareness. So there's more
Yes,
awareness,
good point.
which creates new problems.
Mhm.
But back when my daughter was little, 25 plus years ago, all we had was Rain Man.
Exactly, like, we've come so far, and that's why we're getting more diagnosis too, because and we're getting adults that are getting diagnosed because of how far we've come. We still have a long ways to go, but every year we're getting more of an understanding, more research, and we're finding more things that help. I don't wanna say answers because I feel like, I don't know if we're ever gonna have full answers with autism, and that's okay, as long as we keep learning more, we're gonna be diagnosing more for that reason.
Right. I think I don't know if I shared with you, but I think I read recently that back in 2000 it was like one in every, I don't know, 250 kids or something like that. And now in 2022 they did a study and it was something like one in every 34 or something like that.
Correct. Yeah.
And man, I'll tell you, a lot of that I think is because of the awareness and
Mhm.
the new, testing tools, because everybody's so individual. You're part of a spectrum, but you're individual. It's so
100%.
hard because, and as parents, it's hard for us, especially when they move into those teenage years, because how much of that is behavior versus diagnosis?
100%, absolutely, and I think that's where we get that kind of that gray area too. You've got hormones streaming through. I just had a friend tell me their daughter, just got their hormonal monthly little friend, and that was a whole big issue. And when you have children and individuals, adults too with autism, they don't like change. They like
No,
routine. And when you throw in these little changes, or even when she started middle school, that was very difficult. You throw in these little changes that aren't expected, it can be very, very hard and it can lead to a lot more difficulties. And as adults, we don't like that.
yeah,
We don't want to face that. We don't want to deal with that. So I think it really becomes something where they just look for something to blame and they look for the easy way out instead of looking at the research and what helps and what really works.
exactly, exactly. Again, I couldn't agree with you more. One area
Exactly.
yeah, one area that I'm focusing on and hoping to bring a lot more light to and resources to is post education when
Yes.
they graduate from high school, particularly because, well, there's sort of two levels where things just kind of drop off. When the kid turns 12, services go down. And I'm going, well, the child doesn't stop having autism just because they're 12 years old.
Mhm.
So after that, you kind of get this drop, and then it kind of, they go through school, get up through high school, and then they graduate high school, and there's nothing. I mean, there are a few things, but you know what I mean? There's this huge abyss where you go from having services and a structure to, hey, welcome to the world, good luck.
There's also the question of guardianship. I found working with in-home ABA because I learned so much with adults, they don't know that they either have to get power of attorney or get guardianship, because once they're 21, they age out and they're just like, they can say no to whatever they feel like. But then you don't know how long guardianship actually takes. The parents have no idea that it can take up to 10 years and cost tons of money, whereas a power of attorney takes a couple of months and it's a lot cheaper. But depending on where the individual is in the spectrum, guardianship may be the way you have to go. You don't have a choice. And so many families don't know about it. So I love that you bring that up because that is something we need to put more out there as well.
It's a very, very personal and difficult decision. I had a wonderful autism advocate, and there were a group of us, and I still really struggled with, do I do guardianship? Do I do, power of attorney? Like, it is so hard. You have to weigh everything. Yes, you want to continue to help your child, but there comes a point where you can't force them to listen to you.
Right.
And not
It's a
only
catch
that, if
22,
they go,
basically.
yeah, if they go out and do something, I'll use the word stupid, because
Like any
young
child,
adults,
yeah.
yes, young adults, we all do
Yeah,
stupid things.
exactly.
Like, oh, I think I'm gonna go out and buy this, fancy sports car because I have credit now and I can go. Well, who does that fall back on if I'm the guardian?
Exactly.
That puts my
Mhm.
home at risk and my life at risk. And am I willing to pay the price for their mistakes, or do I let them have ownership of it, but come alongside them and help them through?
And
And
it's so great you bring up this example too, because that's still very similar to neurotypical families.
right,
Because what if your daughter was neurotypical, bought this sports car, wouldn't you be worrying just as much with her going out driving a sports car? What if she gets into an accident? What if she does this? It's still something you're gonna worry about and still gonna fall on your shoulders, if something, knock on wood, happens. So I
right,
love that you bring
right,
that up because it shows families too, you still are gonna go through those similar difficulties no matter what.
right. Exactly. And that goes back to seeing your child as the person and not as the autism. I struggle with that. I do.
Your mom.
I'm mom, but also, I've been doing physical therapy with people for 30 years. So what's my job? Find the problem, work with the problem, fix the problem. Not that I'm calling autism a problem, but you know what I mean. Like,
But you know what? My
okay.
parents still do it with me. And that's what I mean, like, it's so similar. I'm not a mom of a human child yet, I have 2 fur babies, but I still feel like you never stop being mom, whether neurodivergent or neurotypical, you're still going to have those worries and concerns, just like you're talking about.
Exactly. And, you know, I'm not done making mistakes, you know?
Nobody is. I feel like we're always growing, evolving, and mistakes is how we learn. We could be, 90 something years old and still making mistakes, because that's part of being a human being. That's part of being our species. It's just always going to happen.
Exactly. Exactly. Again, nail on the head. You just,
I
I just love talking to you so much because you really
do
have this
too.
great perspective and great
Thank you.
personality to go with it. It's so, it makes me so happy to see someone like you who doesn't have a child with autism or anything like that, but still understanding it so well and being willing to put yourself out there and step out there and fight for, these people that need advocates like yourself.
That is
So thank you for
the
doing that.
highest
That is
compliment.
really appreciated. And I'm sure that it's not just me. I know a lot of people. My goal for my show and this platform is I want to be the resource that I needed when I was just having my daughter first diagnosed all those years ago, and somewhere they can go to get good information.
I agree.
Your information is just so spot on, and I just thank you so much for being here.
Of
And
course. That is the highest compliment you could pay me. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. That makes my day. That means everything to me.
well, we really appreciate you for real. Um, tell us a little bit about your books and where we can get them.
So I have a few different series. I have my Let's Talk series that is about autism and friendship, and each one is a different social issue and different activity. Then I have my Happy Thoughts series. Book two is coming out soon, next month, and that is actually a spin-off of Let's Talk. It's my character with nonverbal autism. She narrates. How do you narrate when you're nonverbal? Using your picture exchange communication system and thought bubbles. So that's been really fun. And I also have, so that's actually being illustrated by Brainstorm Productions, who employs individuals with autism in illustration. And I have a number of books illustrated by them, and each one is a different set of 12 individuals. And I have my Cat Brothers series, Rascal Cat and Mischievous Cat Brothers, based on my kitties. That's my only nonfiction series, illustrated by Brainstorm. So that's really fun. I also have my Halloween book, my Spooky Ookie, and my Perfect As I Am, which is my special needs cat book. And I have a spin-off series of that called Bones and Friends, which Brainstorm also illustrated. They also did Spooky and Perfect. And those are really fun because Bones is a different brother. It's a set of three brothers with special needs. One is blind, one is hydrocephalus, and one has three legs. So each one narrates a different mystery, and it's mysteries that are very relevant to cats. The first one is their mice toys go missing, and how does a cat who's blind go find his mice toys? You
Yes.
know? And the second one just came out in February. It's their fish. Everybody's got beta fish. So it's their fishy friends disappeared. So how does a cat with three legs go help find their fishy friends? So it's to show that even though they're special needs, they can do everything any other cat can and that they're beautiful too. So that was something that really, really meant a lot to me. And it just means so much that Brainstorm is illustrating them because one, they're incredibly talented, but two, it's special needs and special needs. Special needs
Right.
individuals illustrating, showing they can do it, but also special needs kitties. So that is so incredibly near and dear to me. I also have an anthology called Wellness Through Words that I contributed one chapter to. And that is a medical anthology, and it's personal stories and resources from 25 different authors about different things in the medical field. So mine is about resources and stories from my career about for first responders and emergencies.
What
So
was that called again?
I'm sorry?
What was the name of that one again?
That one's called Wellness Through Words. And my chapter is chapter 10. And it's really so first responders can understand how to interact with individuals like firefighters, policemen. I've had bad experiences, unfortunately, with police officers when I worked with adults.
Yes.
So that's part of what really inspired that. And the book is just so incredible. I've read the whole thing and I've got a couple author friends in it. It's so inspiring to hear these stories. It's so
Yeah.
powerful and impactful. And my chapter two, I'm presenting a poster on it at the American Psych Association in Denver in August. I'm super excited. And I'm giving a training based on it in November virtually through the NJPA if anyone is interested. So I'm really
That's amazing.
excited. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very, very excited. The book, I was asked to be part of it, is so incredible. And all the proceeds, so any books that are sold, all the proceeds go to another nonprofit called Enchanted Makeovers. They redo women's and children's homeless shelters. So that was another really amazing perk. I love the woman that runs that. And also my author friend came up with the idea for this, Pat Rulo. So, that's very special and near and dear to my heart. So that's one of two anthologies I've contributed to. The other one is Visions, another nonprofit anthology, has one of my short stories in it. And I'm also doing a couple more anthologies this year. I have a collab with another author friend. More details on that coming soon. And then I have another anthology about finding my confidence and power as a leader coming out later this year, more details to come. But you can find
Nice.
all my books on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble. Half of them are at Walmart, Target. I know we're boycotting them. You can still find every single one on Barnes& and Noble, and you can always contact me through my email or social media, and I do free shipping, and I always sign it, so you can always get a signed copy.
Oh, and what is the ideal age range for your books?
It really varies, to be honest. It's so hard. I always get that question. It's so hard. So I read 2 of my books to preschoolers a couple weeks ago, and it was a whole book reading for the entire school district. I did 2 elementary schools earlier in the week, and the preschool was my favorite. That was my favorite. I read Happy Thoughts Going to the Zoo to them, my second book, and they sat through the entire thing. They were engaged. They were super cute, telling me what animals they loved. I said, "Is it okay to bully?" They said, "No." And these are 3-year-olds. So, it
That's
really
amazing.
depends. And I've had a lot of adults come up to me and say, like, this helped me understand my kid better, my friend's kid, my neighbor, my niece, my nephew. Even my grandmother was like, I don't understand autism because of you.
Yeah. The
So it
tools like
varies.
that are really, really helpful. I know that I will tell people watch the Temple Grandin movie
Yes,
because that really
100%.
gives you insight as to how people with autism. Now everybody's different, but it'll change your perspective.
I agree.
And speaking of anthologies, I'm very, very, very excited because my first anthology is coming out tomorrow. We're
No
filming on
way!
the 5th.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So we're filming on
Congrats.
the 5th of May tomorrow. The ebook is out on Amazon. It's called The
Yay.
Heart of a Mother with She Rises Studios. I'm very, very excited. This is my first
Yay.
ever book. So uh,
Congrats! You're a brand
thank
new
you.
author. That is the
Thank
best
you.
feeling
Thank
in the
you.
world. I'm gonna see posts about it on Facebook and Instagram. I'm excited. I follow all of that. That's amazing.
Nice. I'm very excited. I can't thank you enough for being here today. I'd love to invite you back to have more chats and maybe participate in one of my panel discussions that I'm putting together.
Yeah, I would love to. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm even more excited now.
Your energy is just so catchy. I just love it.
Thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you
much.
again. Hope you all enjoyed this episode and tune in later.